Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on a very, very interesting topic. We hope you find it interesting and engaging. I'm Dave Myers. I'm a senior fellow here at the Berks County Community Foundation. We've been doing the forums for a while. This is new for us at this location, but we're excited about it. And I want to thank all my colleagues here at the Berks County Community Foundation for their support. It's a heavy lift to carry me, and I appreciate all their work. We ask that you keep your microphone muted while we're in the program, but keep your cameras on because it's important to be able to see who we're talking to and who we're dealing with. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the chat function, and we ask you to submit your questions and comments in the chat function, and we will get to those when we get done with the formal presentation. If we don't get through all the questions, we will share them with our colleagues, our friends at Schuylkill River Greenways. We also share the video with everybody who registers, so we know we get some people who register but aren't able to join us, but we'll watch the video later. And we encourage people to share the video, make use of it. It can be a terrific asset, and hopefully it's helpful for people. We also share with BCTV, the local community television station here, and we posted on the YouTube page to Berks County Community Foundation. So hopefully we get a lot of play. Want to thank you again for joining us.
Sorry, I'm just going to copy this real quick. Okay.
Why did my video just disappear?
We still see you, Dave.
Okay, I see you, Tom. So people just disappeared. Okay. Well, thank you again. With that, I'm going to introduce Elaine Schaefer, who is the CEO of the Schuylkill River Greenways and our lead speaker today, but not our only one. So, Elaine, to you.
Thank you, Dave. And before I get started, I want to say thank you for organizing this forum and all of the forums that you do. I feel it, it's a really great community service to have these conversations about all kinds of topics. I've tuned into things about juvenile justice, and you really run the gamut, the spectrum of issues facing the Berks County. So thank you. So hello, everybody. I am Elaine Schaefer. I'm the executive director, although I like being called CEO. I'll take that. Thank you, Dave. I'm the executive director of Schuylkill River Greenways, and we are a nonprofit organization who we're a heritage area, and our heritage area is 5 counties: Philadelphia, Chester County, Montgomery County, Berks County, and Schuylkill County. And our main mission is to connect people and communities to the Schuylkill River, and to build a body of stewards of the river, to protect the river, and to connect communities to the history and the culture and the heritage of our region. Now, I am on this screen today with many members of my team. We have our whole trail staff here. Kent Himmelwright is our brand new trails director. And you all might remember and know Kent because we stole him from the Berks County Conservation District. And he's been with us now, I think, for 2 months, 3 months. So he's, old hat by now. We also have Julia Hurl, who was the immediate past predecessor in that position as trails director. And I'm sure you all know her from working her work on the trail. And Jacob Gardner, he was our trails program manager, and he is out on the trail more than he is not. So you may, if you use the trail, you may know him from the trail. And our deputy director, Tim Fenchel, is on. I want to give a wave. And I do see that we have many board members on this call as well. So if you're on the board, give a wave, and we appreciate you being here. So what we're going to do today is take you through a PowerPoint that goes through some of the projects that we're working on in Reading area, and some other projects as well. And then we'll have some Q&A. So we'll get started. I'm going to go ahead and call up the PowerPoint that we have. And let me get that done. Can everybody see that? The screen, the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, so as I was saying, when we opened, we are a nonprofit organization that champions the Schuylkill River, and we do that in so many ways. We have education programs, we have a grant program that invests in projects to keep water quality high. We are the state designated managers of the water trail, so we do lots of programming on the water, kayaking programming. Many of you may be familiar with the Schuylkill River Sojourn. We also do pedal and paddles. We have a partner, a sister organization called Take It Outdoors, which helps us outfit all of our programs. And we do a lot of education and programming with them. We have bike rides. So our mission and our what we do really spans a lot of different approaches. However, the number one tool that we use to connect people to the Schuylkill River is the Schuylkill River Trail. And not only do we do promotion of the trail, we serve as the convener of all of the different entities that maintain the trail. We do many of our programs and education programs are surrounding the trail. We find the trail to be a great connector because people who are in our, either residents or visitors who are in our orbit, they don't even know that there's a river there. And then they discover the trail, we bring them to the trail, they start to use the trail, they love the trail, and they develop a connection with the river that they didn't even know was there. And it's been a really effective tool to connect people, get them engaged, and become part of the army that we have put together to steward this river, and to appreciate its place in our economy, in our culture, and in our heritage. So the trail is, when it is finished, it will be 120 miles from Philadelphia to Frackville through all 5 counties that I mentioned earlier. Right now, it begins in Philadelphia, south of Christian Street. There is an extension that will be opened later this year, I think in 2025, that will bring it all the way down to the Grays Ferry Crescent and down to Bartram. Eventually, it will go all the way down to Fort Mifflin, and that will be the eventual beginning or terminus, however you look at it, of the trail. The trail is built. If you're looking at this map, all of that red area is built trail. And there are about 80 to 85 miles, this number 81 on the slide is a little that are built. There are a lot of miles to be built, and all of the miles to be built at this point are in Berks County and Schuylkill County. Now, our organization, Schuylkill River Greenways, we are responsible for the trail in Berks County and Schuylkill County. From Montgomery County on in, the trail is owned by a lot of different entities. Most of the time it's owned by the county through which it goes. And that's who it's maintained by as well. So part of our mission is to build the rest of this trail. And it's a number one priority for our board to get this trail finished, because we recognize the importance and the value it brings to our community in terms of our local economies, in revitalizing the cities through which it goes, and in connecting people to their heritage and the history and their culture. I am going to go ahead and do the next slide. We are focusing today on some of the projects that we have going on in Reading, because we've been doing sort of a full court press and blitz to increase awareness in the Reading community of this trail coming through Reading and trying to get it finished. Driven by the fact that the trail right now comes all the way from Philadelphia, all the way up to the edge of Pottstown, and then people have to turn around. So if you are looking at the screen right now, this area where my arrow is coming through Chester County. This was finished about 2 years ago. You cross over, there is a lane, a bike lane built on the 422 bridge over 422 here. And then there's a big fence here that stops people. And there is no connection between here and where the trail starts up again and then goes up into Berks County. Last year's count for people coming through here was almost 80,000 counts, 80,000 trips. All those 80,000 trips turned around and came back this way. This section right here where the red line is getting built this year. Last we heard, construction would be starting in February. We shall see whether that happens. This project is being run by Montgomery County, and this is the alignment. It will come off the bridge and do sort of a loop-de-loop, then go under the bridge, and then this is Industrial Boulevard. This is a part that is already built. This part of the trail is on road here, which is why there's no green line, but it is part of the Schuylkill River Trail. And then here is where it picks up at Riverfront Park. So the reason for our calling of attention and doing this blitz of getting people to focus on the Reading section is because those 70,000 trips or 80,000 trips are going to be continuing on. There will also be a great number of people who are coming from Reading who will now have access to going into all the way into Philly on the Schuylkill River Trail. This slide shows the 3 projects that are like on our front burners right now and that we're really pressing on. I'm going to take you through them on this map. If you can see my arrow, the yellow is already built and the red is where our projects are focusing. So the first project that we are focusing on is this Reading Front Street project. This goes right through RACC. And if you know where the Yoakum Library is, it goes right in front of the Yoakum Library. And this is the first project we'll talk about. The next project we're going to talk about is this Riverview section that starts at the Buttonwood Bridge, goes through this park and heads up to the Schuylkill Avenue Bridge. There is a trail here. Many of you may have seen it. It's not up to the standards of a circuit trail or the Schuylkill River Trail. And we'll talk in a moment about some of the things that need to happen there. And then finally, we're going to talk about this tiny little section right here, which is the Reading Gateway Bridge. Many people refer to that incorrectly as the RACC Bridge. RACC has nothing to do with that bridge. It is owned by the county, and we have an easement on it for the trail. It does enter RACC's campus, but it is not the RACC Bridge. So those are the projects that we are going to go through this morning. And then when we're finished with that, we're going to go through some of our other big projects that we'd like you to know about in other areas. So the Front Street project is, as you can see over on this left-hand side, coming off of the Reading Gateway Bridge, going into the RACC campus, and then crossing in front of the Yoakum Library, up this Front Street, and then joining with the already constructed River Road section. The city constructed the River Road section, which is on road with a barrier. They finished that maybe a year or 2 ago. So this is to connect the existing trail coming from the Craigslink section and going over the Reading Gateway Bridge through the RACC College and joining up with the River Road section. You can see from this schematic drawing. This is something that we drew 10 years ago. I think we used TPD to do it. This is still the concept, but we have just hired TPD to do actual engineering of this plan. So it may look a little bit different than this when we finish engineering it, but this is still the concept. And you can see from this next slide, this slide has pictures out of RACC's master plan. And this schematic and this plan has been adopted by RACC as well. Overall, they're doing a lot of changes to their campus, making it much more pedestrian friendly. And this is incorporated into their planning. Now, as I mentioned, we just raised the money for the funding of this engineering section of the plan. So we have hired TPD and they are starting out now. We are very, very hopeful that the engineering will be done by the spring, early spring. The reason that timing is so important is that many of the bigger construction grants that are available through the state anyway, notably the C2P2 program, that the deadline for those grants is in April. So we are pushing hard to get this engineering done to be in a good enough shape to submit construction funding so that this project can move along. It's important that this project is moving along and in place because what we don't want to happen is we have the section at 422 in Pottstown open. All of these people, all of this attention comes to this area. All of these people now take the trail all the way up. They get dumped into Reading and then they don't know what to do. There's nothing, they're going to turn around. They're going to say, oh, the trail ends here. We don't want that to happen. We want to bring them into Reading. We want to bring them through RACC and bring them to the center of Reading, have signage, have them take advantage of all there is to offer in Reading. And have a trail, a welcoming trail there for them that leads them to do that. So back to our calendar, we are very, very hopeful that we will have these engineering plans and the cost estimates completed by the spring so that we are ready for the construction rounds. And then that construction funding, if we got it, would be available the next fall. So the fall of 2025, money would be when the award was given, and then the money would be available winter of 2026. And hopefully that we stay on schedule and then the construction could begin that year. The engineering funding we raised in the last few months. We did not use any state money or any government money. We applied to a lot of our local foundations who are heavily invested in supporting the Reading area. As you can see over in this chart over on the lower left-hand corner, we received money from the Wyomissing Foundation, from the Jansen Foundation, Bridegem, and Rails to Trails. And we're short, but we continue to fundraise for this project. The next section I want to talk to you about is the Riverview Trail. Now this section, as I pointed out in the beginning, is sort of at the top of Reading and leading out. And right now that trail, while beautiful, is narrow. It's not lit. It's enclosed by vegetation. It is in some places very close to the river and degraded because of erosion. When you go to this section of trail, you don't feel welcomed or safe or that it is a professionally designed and maintained trail. We hired Simone Collins to do a feasibility study of what would need to be done to bring this up to both circuit trail standards and Schuylkill River Greenway standards, or Schuylkill River Trail standards. And that is almost finished, and we have one more public meeting for that process. But the suggestions that they have put forward are all things that you would anticipate: widening the trail, straightening it out where it is too zigzag so that you have a clear line of sight, putting lighting on the trail, increase signage on the trail, bringing the trail away from the river, just improving it in many different ways to make it a safe, welcoming, well-lit, well-signed extension of the Schuylkill River Trail that takes you through the rest of Reading. Here is our timeline for that. So you'll note that I called it a feasibility study and not an engineering study. We do not have this engineered at this point. And getting it engineered will require some initial conversations preceding that engineering with Norfolk Southern, who owns slivers of land that will be necessary to move the trail to. And many of you may realize that that's easier said than done. So we will be hopefully in partnership with the city, reaching out to and working with Norfolk Southern to make sure some of the changes that are proposed in the feasibility study are possible. And we'll have to work out the logistics of that before we can really invest in the engineering. So that is the very next step, is working with Norfolk Southern, obtaining those rights of way. Once that is done, we will then move on to engineering. We right now have not identified the engineering funding. So that process will take place over the next year. It'll probably end up being a combination of local foundations, state money, and we'll be probably asking many of you on this call for help trying to identify funding sources for that. Once that engineering is done, we will go into the construction funding stage. That's probably not till 2027. And should that be successful, construction would be 2027, 2028. Next, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Gateway Bridge. As I mentioned before, this is the bridge that many people talk about or refer to as the RACC Bridge. Right now, the trail does go over the Gateway Bridge. For anyone who has gone over this bridge and experienced it, it's serviceable. It's actually, the county did some changes to make it safer, so it is safe at this point. But it's not a pleasant experience. It's not aesthetically pleasing. It's, for a bridge that goes over a gorgeous river entering a great city, it's very utilitarian, not in great shape, and serves the purpose of getting people over the water, but it is nothing more than that. Now, we envision changing this bridge and introducing some public art or architectural features to the bridge that will make it a destination. So infrastructure-wise, the bridge is fine. In fact, we went to the commissioners, the Berks County commissioners, maybe a year and a half ago, to float this idea of doing a big public art architecture project. And they said, before we do that, let's go ahead and make sure that this is in good condition and it's, a bridge that is worth investing in and saving. And thankfully, thanks to them, they did do an engineering study to make sure that the bridge is in good shape. The answer to that was yes. So we are now proceeding along with this project. These are some pictures of other bridges, other places that have done architectural or public art features, incorporated them into a bridge, pedestrian bridge, to draw attention and make it more of an experience and not just a utilitarian function of getting people over a feature. If any of you have ever been to London and gone over the Millennium Bridge, that's a great example. I mean, people come from all over the world just to go over that bridge because it's cool and you get great views. In New York City, the High Line is similar, a trail that's elevated, and just the cool public art and architectural features of that draw people from all over the world. So our idea is that we will take this utilitarian bridge. You can see on this slide on the left-hand side is the current condition. Again, perfectly functional, but no one's going to get their bikes out and look at the map and say, oh, hey, let's go to the Reading section because they have a cool bridge there with the bridge in the way that it is now. And experience has shown us that if you do have a cool feature on a trail, one that is aesthetically pleasing and architecturally and artistically different and interesting, people will pull out their map and they will say, oh, I've heard that bridge, that Reading Gateway Bridge is cool. Let's do that section of the trail. And all those people will come into Reading and get something to eat, use the amenities. And that is the idea of really creating something that welcomes people into Reading in an interesting and pleasing way that will attract people and make people come to this section of the trail. Of course, this is a big project that's going to take many years. Of the 3 projects that we've talked about today, this is the longest term project. This is just the very beginning of it. We have applied for a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts for $50,000. That requires a match. We did apply for a grant from the Norfolk Southern Foundation for the match, and we did not get that match. So we are currently seeking, looking for the places that we will get the match that we can use towards this NEA grant, should we get it. We will not hear from the NEA until April. And should we get the grant, the project can't start until July. We've listed here some of the partners that will be part of the steering committee to get this project going and shape the project. Of course, it will be a community-informed process that really helps the community, encourages the community to participate in what this would look like, and what we would be celebrating with this bridge. So the next steps for this project, as I said, if we get the grant, we can't even start until next July. At that point, we would be convening the steering committee and hiring a artistic consultant, creative director to really get everyone together and help organize the process. We'd have many public meetings and public workshops over the next year, hoping to, by 2026, come up with some initial conceptual designs. And those would then come back to the public. Once there was a preferred option that the public and the community honed in on, there would be final design and engineering, and then construction would come after that. This is a very long-term project, as I said, but really could pay off with making this a destination and calling attention to the city of Reading and the trail coming through it. So those 3 projects are in the hopper right now, and we are actively working on those 3 projects. Last year, we finished a feasibility study for the many miles that are not built between Reading and Hamburg. And I'm going to take you through a few of those sections right now, heading out of the city. Now, we are not actively working on these sections yet. We have a staff of 10, and we can only do so many projects at once. Although we're chomping at the bit to get these projects started because there's at least 20 miles of trail to be built between Reading and Hamburg. And as many of you know, the trail picks back up in Hamburg and goes on for over 9 miles. So, you know, the sooner that we can build these sections, the better. In the feasibility study process, we tried very hard to get the communities through which the preferred alignment goes to get engaged so that we could get more partners working on this trail all at once. And we did have Muhlenberg step up and start working on their section. We've had conversations with the people in Bern. So we're trying hard to get partners all along this alignment, going all the way up to Hamburg, so that even though we're only 10 people, we can still make progress on all of these different sections. So this section that I'm showing right here is coming out of Reading. We just talked about this Riverview section here. Right now, if people are going on this trail, they are going over the Schuylkill Avenue Bridge and then sort of trying to navigate these roads up here. The preferred alignment that came out of the feasibility study process doesn't go over Schuylkill Avenue Bridge. Instead, it stays on the east side of the river and goes up through the east side of the Carpenter Technology campus. That is because we had some conversations with Carpenter Tech, and they did not want the trail on this side of their campus there. They preferred to have it on this side of the campus. It does complicate matters a bit because this beginning section, a lot of it is Norfolk Southern land. It's not Carpenter Tech. So again, we have to enter into some conversations with Norfolk Southern about rights of way, and you know how active that line is and what they're trying to preserve there. I'm not sure if you can see this, but this comes out of the Carpenter Tech campus up at the top, and it, instead of hugging the river, it goes through the neighborhood a bit to eventually get to the First Energy Stadium, to connect the trail to the stadium. I think the next slide might take us there. Let's see, my pictures are. So yes, you can see, so that this is the top of the Carpenter Tech property here. It would come up through the neighborhood here, and then come back over to the river. I believe this is that big Amazon or it's a warehouse facility. This is a road that I think the primary use of that road is the warehouse trucks. But it will cross back over to the water there and then head into Muhlenberg here. And I mentioned before that out of this feasibility study, we did a project right away with Muhlenberg, and Muhlenberg partnered with us and really took over the project and built this section up here. It was the Kelly's Lock to Laurel Run segment. So that has already happened. Next, this is heading out of Muhlenberg, and it's amazing how much of this trail alignment goes through Bern Township. Bern is will be a huge host of the trail as it comes out of Muhlenberg. This is challenging because although some of the land down here is state owned, and that's this land here and this land here, state owned, much of this alignment here is in private hands and many different private landowners. So there's a lot of negotiating to be done over the next several years to have the trail come through Bern. And we are looking to the community. We've gone into Bern to try and get people excited about it. And we're hopeful that we will continue to grow those partnerships in Bern and get some real impetus behind getting the trail built there, because that alone is going to be a great section of the trail. This here is a picture of kind of the whole alignment from Reading to Hamburg, going all the way up. You know, as we were heading out of Reading, we are not focusing on so much on the detail, but a lot of this is unbuilt, and you know, we have our work cut out for us. Much of it goes through railroad land, so there's a lot of right-of-way and access to land rights to be done in the sections heading into Hamburg. But we are up for the task. And you know, we are always looking for partners in all of the townships through which these go, so that we can do more projects simultaneously. Now I'm going to take us out of Berks County for just a minute, because as I mentioned before, we're, you know, a small nonprofit of 10 people. We have 3 people in our trails department that are focusing on trails full time. And in addition to the 3 projects that we're actively pursuing in Reading, we have some really big projects in Schuylkill County, because the trail, as you know, goes all the way up to Frackville. Right now, the trail picks up again in Hamburg, and it goes through to Auburn. Just last year, we finished a section that it used to stop at the Schuylkill River. We rebuilt the Auburn Bridge and changed it into a pedestrian trail. And then we had to build a, let's see, I'm not sure if we have any of that. I think we don't. I'm going to go back to that picture. This section is all new, coming from the Bartram section of the trail that goes from Hamburg to Auburn. And right here where my arrow is, that is a resurfaced railroad bridge over the river. And then this is an extension that brings the trail back to grade as it comes off the river. This extension then joins up with a pre-existing section that brings people into Auburn. Now you may be looking at this and wonder why we wouldn't just continue on with the old railroad bridge that goes straight off of the river. And that was because of a landowner, a recalcitrant landowner that did not want to sell. So we worked around it. We took this alternate route around the property. We got an easement from another landowner, and the trail now connects up there. That project that I just spoke about, the Auburn Bridge, is finished. It's done. We're thrilled, but we have moved on. Now we are working on the sections at the very, very top of the trail. So as you can see from this map, the Frackville is at the top, and we have typically said that is the end of the trail, but all of the people in Frackville say it is the beginning of the trail. So depending on your viewpoint, the Frackville is the beginning or end. And we have been working on the section from St. Clair to Frackville, the last 6 miles of the trail. There are 2 sections that we've divided it up into 2, the Mill Creek section and the Frackville section. For the Mill Creek section, which is about the first 4-point-something miles, we have received a 1.5 million TASA grant through the Department of Transportation, plus a $500,000 grant from DCNR C2P2. So we have $2 million in hand to do the construction. This is all engineered already, to do the construction of this section. Because it's a TASA through the TASA program and with the Department of Transportation, they're lots and lots of I's to dot and T's to cross. So the construction time will be a little longer than we're used to. And Julia and Kent and Jacob are crossing all those T's and dotting all those I's. But the trail will go through the borough of St. Clair on road so that trail users will experience the town. Then there is a really cool feature that I'll talk about in a minute right here, which is a bridge that PennDOT has, a restored historic bridge that PennDOT has put in. And then it goes through some beautiful, beautiful landscape here on top of a SCMA water line, the Schuylkill County Municipal Authority water line. When it enters Frackville up here, it will go through the town again of Frackville at the very end up here, and end in their town. I just mentioned the historic bridge that was rehabbed. I do have a picture of it in the next slide, I think. But this is the trail coming out of St. Clair, the town, going over Mill Creek right here. There's a big shopping plaza here. You know, the typical, I think there's a Walmart and a Dunkin' Donuts and whatnot. Then it comes close to this Highway 61, comes along the highway, crosses over this very cool bridge, and then heads up into the mountains. This is a picture of the very cool bridge. This bridge, PennDOT has a program where when they take down old historic cool bridges, they have an obligation to see if they can rehab it and use it elsewhere. We are very lucky that when they took down this this bridge from Montclair, I think it was, nearby, they took it to a warehouse in, I think it was in Ohio. They took it all apart, they rehabbed the whole thing, put it back together, brought it here, and are using it to incorporate in the Schuylkill River Trail. It's a very cool program. PennDOT was a delight to work with on this project. They finished far faster than anybody expected them to do. So this part of the trail is in before the rest, which that hardly ever happens. But again, this is a really cool feature of the trail that will draw people. When the Schuylkill River Trail is finished, when we have done this project, and which is a couple years away, people will come to do this section of the trail to see this cool bridge, to read about the history, and also because the trail going up through those mountains is absolutely gorgeous, will be absolutely gorgeous. Another interesting feature of this section of trail, I'm going to go back to the first mile or so will be cohabitated with an ATV trail. So the bike and pedestrian section will be next to an ATV trail. There will be a barrier so that there's no going back and forth. But the reason being is that, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Famous Reading, I think it's called the Famous Reading Activities or something, and it's a tourist and a recreation attraction where people buy permits to enter onto the land up here that's owned by the I think it's the Reading Anthracite family people, and they are allowed to bring their 4x4s and their trucks and their ATVs and ride around. It's a big business. They draw a lot of people from New York as well as Pennsylvania. And in the category of if you can't beat them, join them, we are going to, sort of co-host the ATVs in their own spot so that they don't use the Schuylkill River Trail to access these lands once they have gotten their permits. And again, that's been a great relationship. And the more people that we bring to this area through, whether they're doing the famous Reading trails or our trail, the better. And the more we stimulate that economy up there, which really needs stimulation. This is a drawing of the section up in, and I'm gonna ask either Kent or Julia, to talk about this slide, because this is a section that I have not been involved in, but we wanted to kind of give you a little information about. So Kent, Julia, do you want to hop on and?
Yes, I will, let me take that one. This is a proposed trailhead for the end of the Mill Creek section, that 4.5 miles of trail that come from Schuylkill, St. Clair Borough up through the Reading Anthracite property, the SCMA property. And the SCMA corridor ends at the state game lands property. This is a state section off of Route 61 that's used to access the state game lands. There's an existing parking area here. We are proposing, and we have an arrangement, an agreement with the game lands to have specifically a Schuylkill River trailhead here. Now, since we've done this particular drawing, PennDOT is using this area, on the state game lands. It's a large open parking area as part of their staging area for the Route 61 work. Many of you probably know that PennDOT's doing a big project to improve Route 61 up in this area, and that will go on for several years. So this design will probably change due to that and because of the changes that PennDOT is making here. But somewhere on this, in this open state game lands area, we're going to have the trailhead for the top of the Mill Creek section. And this is also where the Frackville section begins. It's just, it's a convenient place where we broke the project in half into parts. So coming up from St. Clair Borough, it's about 4.5 miles to this location, where there'll be a lot of parking near the top of the overall top of the trail. And then between here and Frackville, it's about 2 miles. There'll be parking at the other end of that section up at the Frackville softball fields, which are the ultimate northern terminus of the trail. And there'll be a separate parking area there as well.
Thank you so much, Julia. So that is, again, another feature that will be coming in the next few years. This section, so I mentioned that we have the funding, construction funding for the Mill Creek section. We have $2 million. That project actually costs $3 million. So we need another $1 million to finish the Mill Creek section before this Frackville. And we are fundraising for that right now. But this section, the Frackville section, we have just received money through the LSA program, through DCED, to fund the engineering. And that will happen over the next year. Once the engineering is done, we will then be going out for the construction funding of this section. So they're on 2 separate timelines. The Mill Creek will happen first, assuming we can raise the last $1 million, and then this will come after that. All right. Didn't realize we have this. So this is the Frackville section that Julia was just referring to, coming through the borough. Again, it's a theme in all of our design that we don't want to skirt the cities with our trail. We want to go right through them. We want to bring all of those thousands and thousands of people through the towns through which this trail goes, so that they stop and get a beer or an ice cream. And they get to know the towns that they are going through. They get to see the cool, historic old villages. Couldn't resist adding in one of the biggest initiatives that Schuylkill River Greenways has going right now. I mentioned earlier that Schuylkill River Greenways is responsible for the Berks County and Schuylkill County sections of the Schuylkill River Trail. Right now, we own and we maintain over 35 miles of trails, including 5 river bridges. And we maintain it. And all of the other sections of trail going into the city, Philadelphia, are maintained by governments. governments that have a taxpayer base. We do not have that. So we struggle mightily to sustainably fund the maintenance needs. And when I say maintenance needs, I am not talking about the mowing and the weed control. That is those operational costs we can take care of through the money we raise. What happens is there are these extraordinary expenses that happen relentlessly every year and are getting worse as the climate has become so crazy. Sinkholes, tree blights. On all those river bridges, we are responsible for the log jams that happen underneath. And these projects end up costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, the big events that happen like this, and we can't get grant funding. Nobody wants to fund maintenance. All of our funders want us to finish building the trail, and that's what they fund. So after a year or so of hand-wringing about how we were going to handle this and hiring some professional help to help us figure it out, we started a capital campaign. We are 2.5 years into this capital campaign. The goal is to raise $5 million in 5 years and set it up as somewhat of like an endowment. And that $5 million will throw off enough in earnings and interest every year to fund those large projects that come up year after year after year. So far, so good. We've been out in the community. I hope everyone on this call has already heard us on this, that we've been really trying hard to get out in the community and let people know. Most people who use the trail think it's government funded. They don't have to worry about it. And that is true for most of the trail, but not in Berks County and not in Schuylkill County. As I said, we've raised a little over $2 million, 2.3, I think, at this point. We have about 2 more years to raise the rest. So I encourage everyone here to learn more about it. We have a web page about it on our SchuylkillRiver.org website. I think we did put, yes, we have a QR code here if you want to just hold up your phone and take you right to more information about the fund campaign. But it's, it's not sustainable for a small nonprofit organization, and every year as we add miles, this burden gets even greater. For those of you who use the trail in Berks County, you may have noticed that we just finished one of these big projects at the Douglasville Bridge in Douglas, our township. And we had a huge log jam there. It cost us, I think, $180,000 to clean that up. And we applied for 5 separate grants to cover that $180,000 and got rejected from all of them. So we ended up, we end up cannibalizing the money that we raised to build new trail for these projects. And that is what this campaign is for, to give us a sustainable forever fund that will forever take care of these maintenance expenses. Now we are on to the question section. Dave, shall I stop sharing and then I'll call up maps if we need them?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've got a lot of enthusiastic people here willing to weigh in on thoughts and suggestions. We have one from Tom Frawley about posting signs along the trail about where they can go to make the donation. So I don't know whether that's something that makes sense to you or not.
That is
Tom
a
is
great
also a good
suggestion.
expert in how to deal with Norfolk Southern because he's the head of the Schuylkill River Passenger Rail Authority.
Tom,
Yes.
can I have your number?
So we'll put you in touch.
Yeah.
I do want to say something about the sign issue. We last year, 2 years ago, actually designed signs, put them up in 5 different locations, and within literally 1 month, they were all vandalized to the point where you couldn't read the QR code anymore. However, we are reigniting that initiative. And we found some materials. We're using anti-graffiti signs and we're going to put them back up. So in this spring, you will see those signs up there again. And hopefully, what will be, you know, will avoid the vandalism this time.
You had mentioned, and I have to make sure I get the numbers right here, but that in the counties sort of south and east of Berks County, the counties are responsible and do a lot of the maintenance sort of stuff. Have you had those conversations with Berks County? Is that something that's a possibility over time? And I know some of the property that you're talking about is owned by the county as well. So talk a little bit about that relationship.
So I've been in my position as executive director for 8 years. When I first took this job, I made an appointment with each of the commissioners in Berks County and in Schuylkill County. And I said, hello, it is so nice to meet you. I am the new executive director, and my goal is for you to own this trail. Because it's not realistic that a small nonprofit owns, you know, 50, 60 miles of trail and can take that on. It is a public asset, it is a public good, and it's enormously expensive. And, you know, the goal is for Berks County and Schuylkill County eventually to be the owner and then have the maintenance responsibility for these trails, for this trail. While we get there, you know, we are doing our best to get the trail finished and to keep it in the best possible condition we can. This stewardship fund that we're raising, another benefit of having this fund is that when we go when we get to the point where we say we can't do this anymore, we've lost our insurance, you know, for whatever the breaking point is, that we say to the county, you have got to take this over. We will also have an endowment that pays for maintenance to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we are thinking in that direction. We are making no secret about thinking of that as the direction this needs to head into. But we're not going to waste time and wait for it to happen. We're going to continue to build the trail, make it the best trail ever while we're waiting. And eventually, yes, that is hopefully what will happen.
And we got a comment.
And I wanted to, yes, Derek, thank you so much for bringing that up. In this last LSA round, we called up the county and Derek in particular, and we said, you know, we need to repave some of the sections that are currently built. And it's very, very expensive. It's more than we can afford. And would you apply for an LSA for that? Because they are in a much better position to get an LSA. And they said, no problem. Within 2 days, they had an application drafted and submitted. So hopefully everybody cross your fingers. And if you know anybody at DCED, tell them that's the most important LSA application out there.
Yeah, I wonder if you could talk a little bit, you use the acronyms for a lot of the funding sources and talk a little bit about what the government funding sources are, what agencies and what exactly they do.
Well, I'll give you the top, you know, 5, but honestly, we find money everywhere. But the top 5, DCNR, the Department of Natural Resources and
Conservation and Natural Resources.
They have a program called C2P2 that is for conservation and recreation. So they are a great funder of trails and trail amenities. DCED, which is the Department of Community and Economic Development. They have many programs that we avail. They have a Greenways Trails and Recreation program. They have economic development programs. They have the LSA, which is gaming funding put towards community goods. They have several programs that the trails avail themselves of. The William Penn Foundation has been in the past a huge funder of all the circuit trails in the entire Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania region. They have just this year started to rethink refocus their investments, and we are unclear at this moment whether their circuit trail funding is going to continue to apply to Berks County. We're hopeful that it is. But they have historically been a really generous funder of trails. There are transportation dollars available through both PennDOT and through the federal Department of Transportation on programs like the TASA, which TASA stands for Transportation Alternative Set Aside. There's also another program called the Multimodal Transportation that comes through the Department of Transportation as well. Trying to think of the other big funding sources that we use. We are a heritage area, so we are in a dedicated program through both the federal government and the state that covers a lot of our, I wouldn't say construction, but all of the work that goes into planning, engineering. It's more of the setting it up for construction stages. We get money through the heritage area programs for that.
What is the heritage program? What does it mean to be a heritage area?
Well, I'm going to give you like the 30-second version, but then I'm going to throw to my deputy director, Tim, who has been with the organization for many, many years and is really a lot better at explaining it. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and throw it to Tim because he's much better than I am at explaining it.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. So National Heritage Areas are places that are unique to our nation's history, where cultural, historical, natural resources sort of all come together and combine to make some kind of story that's significant to our country. And so there are now, I think, just over 60 national heritage areas in the country. It takes some act of Congress to designate a region as a national heritage area. It's a program within the National Park Service. And so basically, we work with the Park Service to, well, I should back up. We received our designation based on the American Revolution, of course, which we all learned about in grade school, the Industrial Revolution, the founding of anthracite coal in Schuylkill County, and then all of the industry that followed the railroads, the canals, the textiles, and the industry. And then the third revolution is the environmental revolution. Many don't know that the cleanup of the Schuylkill River following the Industrial Revolution was the very first real federal and state funded environmental cleanup project in the country. So those three stories are what we got our designation from. But our goal is to basically use some of the funding that we get through our designation as a heritage area to promote economic development and vitality in the communities that support the river. And so, of course, that's where the Schuylkill River Trail comes in, right? The Schuylkill River Trail, as Elaine has been talking about over the last hour, how it can connect to downtown communities, bring visitors, benefit residents, all those sorts of things are a part of what we do. And we use the trail as one of the real significant ways that we engage people with the historical and cultural preservation of our region. So that's a real quick 60-second answer to your question. So we received our heritage area designation in the year 2000, and we do education programs, conservation programs, recreation programs, all in an effort to connect people to the natural, historic, and cultural heritage of our region.
That's cool. I think it's really interesting that you are intentional about engaging the cities and going through the cities of Lane, as you mentioned. Why is that important, and how do you build that into what you're trying to do?
Well, the trail, it's funny. When I first took this job, I was afraid that many of the communities through which this trail is proposed would resist. You know, it's, I'd seen in my prior professional career, you know, people being suspect of the trail, being afraid of the people it would bring in, being afraid of, you know, intrusion. We have had the opposite experience. Honestly, literally every community that we've gone into, when we propose, you know, what this would look like, you know, what it would bring to the community, we get people raising their hands, how can I help? I think we're at a point in history now where people have seen the value that that these long distance trails bring to communities. They've seen the economic development. You know, people that live up in Berks and Schuylkill County, they see what happened at the Lehigh Valley. They see the Gap Trail. The Gap Trail, when that got finished, this is the Great Allegheny Passage that goes from outside of Pittsburgh, 125 miles. That brings in $121 million a year in business. And I think we're at the point in history now where people, they know the examples. They've seen it themselves. They've seen the transformation of trail towns. Look at Manayunk, look at Phoenixville. You know, I met a developer once that told me you don't have to go get an MBA or a degree in economic development. All you need for economic development is good housing, a good trail, and a brewery. And I think people's personal experience, they now have seen it happen in their own personal experience. So we do get good reception from the communities that we're working in, but to make it happen, to raise the money, to get the political support that you need. I mean, all of these grants are competitive. All of these grant programs have very low rates of funding of projects because everyone wants a trail. You need the support of the people in the communities. You need their support, their politicians' support, and you don't get their politicians' support unless you have their constituent support. So for us, it's really important that this comes from the communities, the residents of the community. We've already experienced that the vast majority of them want these trails. They see the economic benefit. They see the benefit to themselves. And that helps us get the political support we need, the financial support we need. And honestly, the kind of resources, when a town like Muhlenberg steps in and uses their own resources, you know, their Parks and Rec people, their public works, I mean, they actually use their own public works to put a lot of their section of that trail that they built in. We're able to get more done as these communities participate. And the more of us that are doing it at once, the quicker this trail is going to get built.
Talk a little bit more about your relationship with Muhlenberg and Township and your relationship with the city of Reading. How is that going? What are you looking for? What's the reaction that you're getting from both of those communities?
Well, I mean, both of those communities want the trail to come through them. No doubt, hands down, they both want the trail to come through them. The city of Reading has a lot of challenges and has a lot of priorities. So it's a little bit of a different calculation. And I think they're a great partner. I mean, they built the River Road section. The city of Reading built the River Road section on their own. And they've been nothing but supportive of what we're putting forward. When it comes time to writing grants, they have a lot of grants they're putting out there. We're one of many important things that need to happen and people want to happen in Reading, and we totally understand that. We are hoping that moving, now that this trail is coming through straight from Philadelphia, that this will go up in the list of priorities so that, for example, when it comes time to apply for the construction funding for this Front Street section, we're hoping that Reading will be the applicant because it's a much stronger application for Reading to be the applicant. And I'm very confident that if they can fit that in their list of priorities, they will do that. But we understand that, Reading has challenges, and while the trail will bring economic benefit to Reading, there are many other things that are competing simultaneously for attention in Reading. Muhlenberg is the star pupil in the trail world. They have a very activated resident base, and which again, going back to my point earlier, when the residents really want something to happen, that filters up to the council people, which filters up to the state reps, which filters up to their Congress people. So we can get a lot more done in a community that becomes activated and wants the trail to happen, and they want it to happen now.
You had mentioned that there are parts of the trail that you've talked about these projects where the trail's existing, but it needs to be upgraded. What kinds of standards are you looking for? What are the holes? What are the problems that you're seeing with what's there?
Well, I'm going to throw that to Julia, because there's actually very specific standards of what makes this a circuit trail.
Well, for the Schuylkill River Trail, which is a circuit trail, we have a goal that we shoot for in terms of the design of the trail, and then sort of a sort of minimum that would count as part of the design of the trail. So ideally, we're looking at a 12-foot wide trail that's handicapped accessible. Most of our trail, the bulk of our trails are rail trail, which lends itself to being handicapped accessible because of the gentle slopes. But we want anywhere the trail goes, you need for it to be handicapped accessible and meet the ADA standards. Typically, we're looking at a 12-foot wide cartway trail surface, at least 2 feet on either side for shoulders, and then whatever space we need beyond that to handle any grading that goes into building the trail. The surfaces that we use in rural areas and almost all of our trail in Berks and Schuylkill counties is a crushed stone trail. We use, if anybody's familiar, we use ASHTO number 10 or a mix for the surface. We do have some areas of the trail that are paved in Berks and Schuylkill County, but we typically would only do that in a more urban setting or in an area where there is some grade to the trail or a drainage issue where it's hard to maintain the gravel. So that's usually maintained. Some standards people don't know about for trails. One of them is height. On many of the trails in Berks County, we have horses as well as bicycles and people walking. So when our teams go out, when we design the trail and when our teams go out to maintain the trail, we have to look at a certain height, which is 14 to 16 feet of clearance. We have standards, of course, for signage, those things as well, but you know, that's some of the more detailed work that we do. So when we need to, we do have when we can't fit a 12-foot trail in, and oftentimes we have narrow easements or we're going through physically a narrow corridor. For instance, when we share the corridor with the ATV trail through the Mill Creek section, the trail there will not be 12 feet wide because there's just not space for that. So we try to never go below 8 feet. And we can do that up in the Mill Creek and Frackville area because it is very rural up there. So there won't be the numbers of people that we get, for instance, near Valley Forge or down in near Reading, where we expect more people to be using the trail. Then we have to stay with the 12 feet or in some cases 10-foot wide trail.
You talked about, and I'm going to ask you, Elaine, to go back to the picture of the bridge, the Gateway Bridge. As you know, there's a lot of work now with PennDOT and what it's trying to do about the Penn Street Bridge and the connection across the river. Is there a possibility of working that out in some way that the two of those things could happen at the same time? Seems to be that, to me, that the improvements on the Penn Street 422 bypass could have an impact on the Gateway Bridge.
Kent, do you want to take that one?
No, you know, yeah, when they do that 422 bypass, it's clearly going to be, you know, disruptive to the trail and users to the trail. Essentially, they have to relocate and build the trail on the west side of 422 there. They do not have any plans to do anything with that Reading Bridge, but I really like that comment and that question because I don't know if that's something we can initiate with PennDOT and bring up to them with this project, because I don't know if it has been brought up. It's a really good comment. to bring that to their attention and to
Mhm.
that program.
Yeah, it just seems that, given what they're talking about doing with the Penn Street intersection, that perhaps making that a more attractive, more pleasant way to get into the city for people from West Reading and for people from the city to go into West Reading might be a real asset. It might be worth having that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you've even hosted PennDOT and did similar webinars, and you know, as far as their planning is not to do anything with the Penn Street Bridge, but only with that the interchange there, and yeah, they're doing quite a bit of work there. What is it? Is that the Byler landing? What landing is that there, Julia? Underneath the 422 bypass.
That's the Bertolet fishing
The
pier.
Bertolet, yeah, the fishing pier there. I know West Reading really put in an effort to keep that landing. Because I think the original plans was to remove it, and now the plans are to keep that landing and keep West Reading connected to Reading via the Schuylkill River Trail. But yeah, David, there, I really like that comment and question about bringing this gateway bridge to PennDOT's attention.
Laying back to you, it sounds like there's, at least in the Reading parts of this, there's some big players that you have to deal with. Talk a little bit more, if you could, about discussions with Norfolk Southern, who can be a significant player in this, and your conversations with Carbon Technology.
Well, we had conversations with Cartech in connection with our feasibility study, several conversations, and did several site visits as well. Now, to be perfectly honest, we have only been dealing with the local, the Reading area Cartech. And we have not had conversations yet with the Center City Cartech people. So, you know, that is not completely set in stone. What we did get set in stone from them was their preference for the trail. And we discovered the ownership issues on the access to the property with Norfolk Southern. Norfolk Southern, we have not started conversations with them yet. When we presented to the city council, we asked for help from the city. The land surrounding it is the city's land. So they're going to have to be at the table with us. And I think they're very receptive to that. And hopefully that will go on. And of course, now that Tom Frowley has offered his help, we're going to have him help us too. But that process hasn't really started yet. That's our next step, is getting the process started. And while we have them at the table and we're asking about Reading Riverview, you will believe me, we'll be discussing the Cartech access as well. But those conversations have not started in earnest. If anyone on this call has any connections that, including Tom, any connection we have, any weight that we can put forward would be helpful.
And we're getting close to wrapping up here, but I will share the contact information that you gave to us about how to be in touch with different parts of your work and your efforts. We did have a question about the sign that were vandalized. Is it just a problem in Reading? Is it a problem in Berks County, or is it a problem along the trail altogether?
Jacob, would you mind answering that?
Yeah, the signage vandalism is not just a Reading issue. It's an issue everywhere. Whether that's, people putting tape or spray paint, whatever. A lot of times we can fix the sign, get it back out there, we're good to go. Other times with like spray paint, things like that, we can't get the paint off sometimes, which will require us to take the sign off, get it resurfaced, or just get a whole new sign made. So to answer the question, no, it's not just a Reading issue. It is a
Well, that's good news on one hand, on the other hand, it's not good news. So-
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you for that.
And let me
Um,
just say that another thing we've just been warned of, which I kind of blew my mind, was that when you put a QR code on a sign that's a fundraising event, there's a whole industry of innovative entrepreneurs who go around and design their own QR to put over your QR so that people donate and it goes to a different account. So now we have that to worry about. We have to have our trail ambassadors checking for stickers over our QR codes.
Well, I want to thank you and your team, Elaine. It's a terrific presentation, very inspiring, challenging, but also inspiring. One last question. What is 5 years from now going to look like?
5 years, okay. We'll have the Trail 3 Reading. We'll be under construction, the trails up through Cartech to the stadium. We will have fully funded our capital campaign, so we will be able to direct all of our resources towards building trail. We'll be making progress on the trail in Schuylkill County as well, but the Mill Creek and the Frackville will be finished. And we'll be I'm going to be super, super optimistic here. We're going to be in full-on negotiations with Berks County and Schuylkill County in getting government ownership of this incredible asset.
Great. Well, thank you. And hopefully that's what the world will look like in 5 years, or at least this part of the world. That's great. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to thank you, Elaine, and your team. It's a great presentation. I hope people will join us. We're going to be doing an in-person one in February to talk about an important thing that's happening here in the city of Reading. It was approved for what's called Community Revitalization and Investment Zone Program, CRIZ. So that's an important thing for the city of Reading, and we're going to be doing that in person in February. And then later in February, we'll be doing a community forum highlighting RACC, and we can ask them about how good of a partner they're going to be in the projects here. We will be sending this recording to everybody. If you have any questions, please send them to me. I will copy all the questions we have. We'll also share with everybody the information we have from the Schuylkill River Greenways about participating and engaging with them. And we look forward to seeing people soon. Thank you all. Hope you will join us again.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.